IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And today, with us for the second time, we have Alex Weber. And we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is rock bottom moments. On the Habit Coach podcast, we celebrate these rock bottom moments because all of us go through these moments in our life. And these are defining moments in our life because the way I look at it, there's no way lower that you can go, right? You're at the lowest possible low of your life. Nothing you can do is going to make it worse. So this is the best opportunity to try something very, very different, try something new and grow out of this. And we've been sharing these stories with our guests for a while now. And I know it's helped a lot of listeners get out of this funk that they're in, saying that, oh, life sucks, nothing good is happening, because they certainly pick up little stories and little maps or routes on the way out of rock bottom. So I'm very excited to have Alex here discussing how to get out of rock bottom moments. Alex, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ashton. It's a pleasure to be back.
So Alex, when I say rock bottom moments, right, what thoughts come to your mind?
Oh gosh. When I hear rock bottom, I almost think of a comical cartoon of someone on a street corner passed out with a big bottle of liquor. And I think that it takes a different form for all of us. And it's a very personal, what rock bottom is and what that means is a very personal experience. I have experienced moments that I would say were close to rock bottom. It's this is great. This is great because they're not easy to go into. Because a true, there's light rock bottoms, which is, oh, we slipped up on that blank, or a funny time, a vacation went wrong, and those are funny ones. But a real rock bottom is the one where it knocks us to the ground, and we're not sure if we're going to get back up.
Those are the make or break moments in our life where there could be a tragedy that has taken place, or where life just punched you in the face, broke your teeth, and all of those things take place, right? How do you think people should approach these rock bottoms? Like, should they be approaching them seriously? How should they be approaching them in different manners? Like, what should they step by step get out of these things with?
Two things. I would say one is an awareness that all things change. So I will never say that moment will not be rough, because it might be very rough. But just an understanding that nothing is forever. Nothing is forever. And I encourage someone to prove to themselves by looking at anything or asking any questions to prove to that truth that absolutely nothing is forever. So what that means is, regardless of the depth of the moment, it will end. And just to know that, it doesn't necessarily make that moment any easier, but it makes it a little bit easier in knowing that there will be an end to it. And the second piece is, and this has helped me, I call it zooming out. And it's just the gift of perspective of reminding ourselves that we are a creature on a floating rock. And for me, it's just given me that perspective of, all right, even in times where people that I love have gotten sick, or a job hasn't maybe gone the way that I hoped it would, it just gives that perspective of, all right, well, we're creatures on a floating rock in space. All right. It just reminds me that it takes my hands off the steering wheel a little bit from grabbing it too tightly.
It's almost like a so what moment, right? Like, whatever I'm going through, so what? Like, I'm one little thing in this huge world. Like you said, like, I'm on a floating rock, little creature on a floating rock. I remember, and I'll share this, it was one of my, when I was going through my rock bottom, I went on a self-discovery journey, right? Like, I was like, what should I be doing? And I went to Everest Base Camp. So trekking is a big part of my life. So I went to Everest Base Camp, and it was the first trek that I'd ever gone on, right? Like how we discussed in our previous podcast, throw yourself in the deep end. I'm a big believer in throwing yourself in the deep end. So never having trekked 2 weeks out, let's go to Everest Base Camp. So that's how it was planned.
Wow.
And we finished Everest Base Camp. Right? We climbed up to base camp, we're back down, and we're in one of the intermediary places. And we wake up in the morning, and I open the curtain, and I see this huge mountain there. And I'm fully charged, right? I've just gone to Everest Base Camp. I'm unstoppable. I look at the mountain, and I wonder, that mountain has no clue who I am,
Hmm.
right? It's been there longer than I've existed and continue to be there longer than I'm going to be there. It doesn't care. What is the point of having my ego? What is the point of me taking, so much, importance in myself and the problems that I'm going through? It's all a little fleeting bit. And I think that was one life-changing moment for me. Just the way that you said zoom out. It was putting perspective on time, right? I'm going to be there for a microsecond in the scheme of things.
I love that. And how did that make you feel in that moment to see, to have that experience of perspective with the mountain?
So for me, it was a moment of saying that why A, do I take myself too seriously?
I see.
B, what is the reason why I have been living my life in a selfish manner all this while, which was of getting better job, getting more money, accumulation. It's all going to go so easily in a blink of an
Mm.
eye, right? How can I instead start helping and changing lives around me? And that's where the whole, not the habit coaching business, but a previous business, which was a fitness business, started saying that how can I help improve lives if getting fit is so easy? Why are people struggling? And that's how the journey changed for me.
I love that. And you said that word accumulation. That's such a great word for it. And this a brief tangent, but my moment right now that I am in this reality in this life right now is that about a month ago I moved out of where I'd lived for a few years, gave away pretty much everything, just because I was looking around one day and there was just so much that wasn't in line with my purpose, and it just felt very heavy. And I wanted to get rid of everything that wasn't supportive of what I feel I'm supposed to be doing with my moments on earth.
Yeah.
So I love that word accumulation. Yeah.
You went through a decluttering moment of saying
Yeah.
that let's get. I think actually this raises a very good point, because decluttering is a fantastic way of getting out of your rock bottom moment, right?
Mm.
It is almost like shedding. Like
Yeah.
how a snake molds its skin and
Right.
gets rid of its skin in order to come out anew. Getting rid of the stuff that you've accumulated all this while through your life is a great way of showing yourself that change is possible.
Mm. It's so profound about what you're saying, and this again, is very real to the moment that I'm in right now. And we'll talk about rock bottom moments in the past, but where I'm at right now is I've physically decluttered a lot. But there's some great quotes of wherever you are, there you are. And I have now realized, okay, I've done a lot of the external decluttering. But if you really want to do what you really want to do, you got to do some internal decluttering as well.
Yeah.
So you're dead on.
How does that journey go?
In the last podcast, we talked about brave honesty.
Yeah.
And that's where it's really talking to yourself and having that awareness of, hey, we're making some choices or we're doing some activities that aren't really that great for us. And knowing that we're human and knowing that we, of course, can still do them, but also having the understanding of, if we still do them, well, if the input is the same, then the output's going to be pretty similar too. So just having that understanding that there is a cause and effect to everything, and really with love, having some brave honesty. And I also want to, some of these terms that we're talking about are very dense in the sense of, I also think that with love doesn't always mean, hey, it's okay. I also think with love is saying to ourselves, you got to do this. You got to change it up. You can't keep doing this because if we care about ourselves, if we care about our lives, we care about the people in it, you can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
And there are some habits that, if I'm being bravely honest with myself right now, that I don't want in my life. And the first step is acknowledging and accepting that. And then the next step is, all right, doing something about it.
Correct. Yeah. And that second step is the hardest, because we normally trip up on that. So we can do the introspection, we can do the why method and figuring out, okay, so these are the things that I need to change. And then
Mm.
putting that into action. Oh God, that is the tough part, right? Because
Yeah.
life is going to test you. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to keep putting that as a temptation back in your life, saying that, are you sure?
Yeah.
You can come back. And it is about, at that point of time, firming up and understanding why you're doing all of this and
Mm.
what is the internal decluttering that you need to do. You know, it's about throwing it away and then making room for something new to come in.
Yeah, and I love what you said there too. You said, "Why are you doing this?" And having that powerful why is just so important because you nailed it. We're going to be tested. I
Mm.
say goals are hard. Of course they are. Living a life that is what we want it to be has difficult moments. So having something strong in us is everything.
Yeah. And creating that structure. Like I keep telling people that whatever you're going through right now was a function of all the habits that you've had so far in your life. But
Mm-hmm.
understand that your past is not going to define what your future is going to be, right? Your past doesn't define your future. The choices you make right now define your future.
Yeah,
And if you can start tweaking that, that is where everything exists. So,
yeah.
I love the way that you were saying that decluttering, fantastic, physical decluttering, internal decluttering, lovely. Now, how do you put a new narrative in? Like, what is the way
Mhm.
that you can switch your brain towards thinking about growth in this context?
In the last podcast, we talked about that idea of first believing that we are worthy of it,
Mm,
which is a difficult thing. And it's something that I wrestle with is this idea of enoughness and deserving and worthiness. Because in some way, shape, or form, it almost feels guilty or,
mm,
uh, there's shame around why do I
mm,
deserve this?
mm.
And I would say that is the first step is believing that this might be possible and that we might be worthy of it.
Correct.
And I do love again the word might
Mm,
because to our conversation earlier, it takes away some of the refuting. If
mm,
we say hard facts, well,
mm,
that's intense,
mm,
but might is open.
mm,
And this goal, whatever the goal is that you have for yourself, it might be possible.
mm.
And what might happen if you did it? So I would say that is the first step.
Yeah, yeah. And might, like you said, it is not about, the might gives you that opportunity, but it gives you that learning as well,
Yeah,
right? If you fail, you can still learn from it, right?
yeah.
That is what that might is doing. It is not a fake promise. Like you said,
Mm,
you will happen, it will happen. It's not a fake promise, right? It's a might. Okay, cool. If this didn't work, what is the next thing that I can try out? What's the next way
yeah,
I can do it?
I love that. Absolutely.
How did you get out of some of your rock bottom moments?
Yeah, I feel like I can only dance around them for so long without actually giving some of what happened. I There were ones that if I reflect back on them, they weren't really rock bottoms, and then there was one, though they felt like rock bottoms in the moment, and then there
Hmm.
was ones where they were.
Hmm.
So one of them
Hmm.
was when I was hosting for NBC. It was a dream job.
Hmm.
We had talked about in the last podcast when I was in college, I was in Ivy League going into finance. And I asked myself, what do I want to do with my moments on earth?
Mm-hmm.
And it was to do something in performing and people.
Hmm.
That's all I knew. As I loved people and I loved comedy and I loved performing, but I also loved betterment and growth and some mishmash of all of that.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like, but some mishmash.
Hmm.
And fast forward a few chapters of life, after winning U.S. Lacrosse Coach of the Year, I coached high school lacrosse. I was doing stand-up comedy, and then I got hired to host for NBC,
Hmm.
American Ninja Warrior, which is people, it's positive,
Hmm.
there's humor, there's growth. It was everything in one. I was like, thank you.
Hmm.
Thank you for this. This is
Hmm.
amazing. And we won an award for best series,
Lovely.
which incredible.
Yep.
And then it wrapped. The series ended. Hard stop.
Hmm.
Went out on a high note, and that. And I
Hmm.
remember having the meeting at NBC, and one of the producers had said, "As you know, the series isn't coming back." I did not know that. And it just felt this deep of like, just lost my breath. And I was driving back from the meeting from NBC, and I just had this pit in my stomach of this feeling that I know too intimately, which is, it's this nauseous, sick, it's heartbreak. That's what it is. That's what the feeling is. It's a combination of heartbreak mixed with fear for the future. And I think we all experience that in some way, shape, or form. What ended up happening, though, was in that moment, I asked myself that same exact question. What do I want to do with my moments on Earth? It's just like we were talking about, of having the awareness and perspective of, okay, floating creature, a creature on a floating, we're floating too, but creature on a floating rock. What do I want to do for my moments on Earth? I wanted to do this, and I did this. Do I still want to do it? Do I want to move to Budapest and become a electronic DJ? Do I want to backpack through Asia? Do I want to start a family? Do I want to go back to coaching high school lacrosse? Do I want to peace out from Earth? Do I want to be done? What do I want to do? Well, what I really want to do is, I loved speaking. I loved the version of myself that I was being Coach Weber, being a high school lacrosse coach. I loved that. So ultimately, the rock bottom moment pushed me into being bravely honest, and it pushed me into the new chapter of life, which is being a professional speaker, which is what I do now and what I love so much, and feels even more true to me than being a TV host.
Correct.
So why I share that is simply, sometimes these rock bottom moments are a transition, and it does not make them any lighter.
Yeah.
Especially if we don't see the finish. But simply knowing, all right, I just got to go through this. I got to go through this, and I got to have faith in myself, and we'll figure out the other end, even if we don't see it yet, but it might lead to something that could be pretty great.
Correct. Yeah. Because at that point of time, you can't even imagine what's going to happen or what's going to be in store. And your brain comes up with all sorts of scenarios. Like, it just starts imagining the worst at that point of time, right? And getting out of that then becomes very, very difficult, because now not only do you have the rock bottom moment that you're in, but you have a heady mix of fear along with it.
Yeah.
And then getting over that fear is a separate thing altogether that we have to go through.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, Alex, I'm just thinking back when talking to you about this. It's almost like you have to train yourself for rock bottom moments, because rock bottom moments happen in life and everyone goes through them. And imagine if for the next rock bottom moment of your life, you got excited, right? And now it sounds strange, but imagine if you're about to go through that rock bottom moment and you're in it and you say that now I'm excited, because what rock bottom moments mean is change. And how can I be excited about what's going to happen, right? Excitement for the future, right? Change is always good. We are so stuck up with the way that we think about saying that change is bad, change is bad. No, change is good. Seasons change. It's there for a reason, right? So understanding this little aspect and saying that I'm excited about what's going to happen to the future completely changes the way that you approach rock bottom moments in that context.
I love that, and that's hitting home with me now, especially over the last year, where it's been some of those moments. And I would say one of my other rock bottom moments was this year. And what you're saying about having that lens of excitement of what could this be leading me to is really beautiful. And I want to say that, a good friend of mine gave me this advice, and I think it applies to, it was a question about career. But she said this, and I think it applies to everything. She goes, could it be an and rather than an or? And why I say that is, can you be excited and then also have the heartbreak, also have the anger, also have the pain, also have all of the human emotions that we have for going through a rock bottom, and excitement?
Yes.
So the one that really tested me was in 2020. And a lot of it was because at one moment, it all happened pretty deep we've all had our, everyone has a one of one, meaning there has been so much that has happened to everyone This was my one-of-one experience with it. Was so much of what I do, speaking, being in front of people, it's more than a career. It's my purpose. It's what I love to do. It's where I feel in purpose. That obviously with COVID got changed and went away. The American Ninja Warrior competition went away. My mom, who's been going through cancer, was going to be with me for it. So that was hard. I was going through a breakup, and 2 days after American Ninja Warrior got postponed, I broke my hand.
Oh, wow.
So it all kind of stacked up into one moment where I had joked with friends. I was just like, put it on my tab. Just, yep, what else?
Yeah.
And what was really something was that I couldn't even process. I knew that the world was ramping up into this state of, I think hysteria is a fair term for the first weeks of COVID because of the uncertainty. But I was like, I understand that is what is going on, but physically I have a broken hand and the doctor's offices are closing down and not allowing people to come in because of COVID. So I was like, I need to figure this out. It was almost like the hospitals were like, don't come in here, there's COVID. I was like, I'm coming in. Just so you know, I'm coming in. But that was one where those next weeks and months truly were a rock bottom. And one, though, this is important, I think, is that I allowed myself, I had been the best version of myself up until March 12th, 2020. And I allowed myself to go into the not best version of myself. It was a conscious choice. And ultimately, after a period of being in that state of being in the rock bottom, there's a great quote, nothing changes if nothing changes. I had a realization of, okay, Alex, you are allowed to be this person. You are allowed, you don't have to be this other version of you that is positive and encouraging and physically fit and speaking well on stage. You don't have to be that version. You can also be this version.
Correct.
But now that we acknowledge that choice, which version do you want to be? And if we unpack what we want for this life, happiness, fulfillment, joy, connection, there was none of that in the low version.
Yeah.
So I ultimately didn't want to be in that rock bottom anymore.
Right. When you put it out that plainly, you almost realize that you don't have a choice. Right? Why would you want this? Like, is that the choice? Really?
Right.
And that's when you start making that change and you're like, screw this. Let's figure this out. Let me do something about it. And like you said, it's that brutal honesty. Like, yeah, this is who I am now. But is this who I should be? Or is this how I want to live the rest of my life? No. Okay, what can I do about it?
Yeah. That's exactly it. That want.
That want. And you have to be able to get there. You have to be able to visualize a better future for yourself. That is the critical next step, saying that, yes, there is hope. There is a way out. And the best way of thinking about hope is like what you said right in the beginning, which was realizing that change is inevitable, right? Is inevitable. Everything changes, right? Everything is temporary. So if everything is temporary, so is this little bad stint that you're going through is temporary. And hence you can picture something better coming your way.
That's exactly it. The physical, I remember looking down at my hand in this splint that was itching and kind of started to smell bad, if I'm being totally honest. And my hand had to be like, like this. And it was, I just remember looking down and thinking, there will be a moment when I look down and this isn't here. And it does not make that moment any less rough. So whatever your moment is of your handbraking moment, whatever that is, it doesn't make the moment any less rough, but knowing that it'll end, it does give perspective to it.
Correct. Yeah. It gives perspective. It gives that sense of, all right, it's not as bad as it seems. Right?
Yeah.
It gives you that sense of hope. And I think that is the most important thing, especially when we're going through our rock bottom moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alex, thank you so much for being this honest, sharing these stories with us. and taking us through this journey, because I know it would have helped a lot of people, especially breaking it down into these steps of saying that, all right, let me see, what can I do now? What can I do now? And I think that's a beautiful way of approaching it. And your perfect storm where everything happened at the same time, your little tab that you started, right?
Yeah.
I hope it ends. I hope you're past it and then
Yeah.
soaring away up
you.
into the sky. Loving it. Alex, how can people get in touch with you? How can people continue this conversation with you?
I appreciate that so much. And like you had said, that it could lead to something exciting. And that is ultimately where that period took me was, okay, what are the hidden gifts here that I can mine and find? And one of them was a book that's coming out this fall called Fail Proof. And that's on Amazon. I'll send it over. And then I have an Alex Weber podcast. So that's me. My name's I'm Alex Weber on all of the platforms.
Mm-hmm. I am Alex Weber, the full thing, or just
Yes.
Alex Weber? I am Alex Weber.
I'm Alex Weber. Yep, that's
Lovely.
it.
All right, super. Alex, thank you so much for coming and joining us on the Habit Coach podcast.
Thank you. Truly a pleasure.
So start these habits and share with us your progress using the hashtag #TheHabitCoach. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome 180.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week. Thank you so much to Cred, Ciet, and Global Victoria. Without you guys, this thing would not be possible. So, on the note, Maruk Inayat gives us an overview of the potential Twitter ban in India. On this round is on me. Gauri Devi Dayal was joined by actor-producer Purna Jagannathan to talk about her career in Bollywood, Hollywood, and theatre. She talks about the upcoming season of the show Never Have I Ever. On Cyrus Says, we had legendary musician Usha Uttup. She took us through her journey and shared her experiences as the unconventional musician. In the second installment of the Father's Day special on Akla Station Adulthood, Ayushi has a candid conversation with her father, Siddhartha Meen. On the Global Victoria Tech Talks podcast, we showcase some compelling new tech stories coming out of Melbourne. Whether it's from the buzzing gaming industry or the robust edtech sector, Victoria is increasingly becoming a hub of emerging technology. And we talk to some thought leaders and industry legends about the same. Catch all the action from the World Test Championship on the Edges and Sledges podcast. For our Hindi listeners, we have Khel Niti, which goes live on YouTube every morning. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
If you love cricket, listen up. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is here for you. Hosted by DJ, Varun, and me, Ashwin, we bring a fun, fresh fan's point of view to talking all things cricket. Sometimes it's just the three of us, sometimes we have guests, including current and former international cricketers. For new episodes every week, check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.